So, I've been reading Paul's letters a little bit over the last little while. Obviously, because today I'm preaching on the letter to the Galatians. But when I was reading this passage, it struck me. So have you ever kind of had this, like one of those conversations, you're kind of talking things through, and then you get in the car, and you start driving away, and you go, oh, I wish I had said that. You know, like there was that one thing that was just sort of there, but you didn't say it, and then you get in the car, and you go, that would have sealed the deal. It would have taken care of all the questions. That would have done it. Paul's letters, in some ways, are that. Right, so if we all know the story of Paul, right? So Paul started off as Saul. He was like a Jew amongst Jews. Like he was the guy. He was going around persecuting Christians, all of that. And then he has the conversion experience. We all know about the horse that doesn't exist. So we have all of this story of Paul, but the big part of Paul's story is that he went around the region and he established house churches, community churches. And those churches grew and they built upon each other to the point where you started to have people who heard Paul teach, right? So they heard him teach, then he goes away, and then there's all of these kind of debates that start happening in the churches. The one that I kind of referred back to this week because, well, so some of you might know that Victoria's getting married. Yeah, did you not know? Okay. Anyway, so some of you might know that Victoria's getting married. And when we were talking about readings and stuff for the wedding, one of the passages that came up was, of course, 1 Corinthians 13, right? Love is patient, love is kind. And so we had a whole conversation about that, and we'll see if that's one of the readings that she chooses, and that's, but that passage comes out of this sense of the community in Corinth kind of having these debates. So Paul says, listen, you can do all of these things are possible, but you have to do them with love. And then, in case anybody didn't understand what he was talking about, he unpacks that, right? He unpacks. So this is, when I say that you should do things in love, this is what I mean. And so he goes, love is patient, love is kind, love is, and it's a beautiful reading, and it really confronts us to think about how it is that we approach each other and how it is that we approach our relationships, our conversations, etc. This passage is very similar. Jim, do you have the paper there? So in this passage, Paul refers back to Jesus when Jesus gave the greatest commandment. And as I have said before, Jesus didn't invent that, right? The greatest commandment is found in Leviticus and Deuteronomy. So what Jesus did was he combined the two, right? So you have one part in Leviticus, another part in Deuteronomy. Love the Lord your God with all your strength, all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul. Love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus takes that and combines it and says, these two go together. So now Paul says that in Jesus, we are set free. Jesus comes and gives us freedom. But what does that mean? Because what people heard in Galatia, what people heard was, I'm free to do whatever I want. Right? And that's what, and we often think about that. So when we say we're free, God gives us freedom. That means that we can do whatever we want. If I want to collect $100 billion, I can do that because I am free to do that. No, you are not. We are not. We are not free to do whatever we want. We are free. God sets us free through the ministry, the good news of Jesus Christ, we are indeed set free. But what are we set free for? We are set free to serve each other. We are set free to love each other. We have the freedom to choose to do what is right. That does not mean that we should choose what is wrong. Right? So here we are. We are given this beautiful gift of freedom. And there are people in Galatia who abused that gift. Hey, Jess, don't worry about it. It is absolutely fine. So, here Paul says, the entire law is fulfilled in keeping the one commandment, love your neighbor as yourself, because if you truly love your neighbor, then you are also loving God. But the people who heard that they were free, they started practicing things of the flesh. And so now when it says that they practice things of the flesh, it is in contrast to the Spirit. Right? So it's not necessarily things that we do with our bodies, right? It's not necessarily grounded in our flesh, but it is in contrast to the Spirit. So here's the list: sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and just in case we thought that was complete, and the like. It's like the call sheets that a minister gets. You have all of these responsibilities, and then all other things as required. So it's a wide open list. So this is not a closed list. It is just the things that came to Paul's mind while he was writing this letter. I've heard that you were doing some of these things. Don't, is what he's saying. So but we are free, right? We're free. We're free to practice sexual immorality if we want. Paul actually then turns around and says, but you are given the freedom in the Spirit. And so, what does it mean to keep in step with the Spirit? Love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Okay. So if we think about the great commandment, which Paul cites and which Jesus points to in a very definite way. So, what is the greatest commandment? Love God, love your neighbor. So how do you love your neighbor? That's the question. It's the question, and it's a question that rises out of our having freedom. Because if we didn't have freedom, so if everything was dictated and God was the person that some people imagine God to be, and that's the puppet master up there somewhere coordinating everything so that everything just happens the way it should, then we wouldn't have to worry about it. We wouldn't have to worry about how we treat each other because we just say, well, God did that. It's like, God made me do that. But we have freedom. And so we can, so here's the difficult part of that statement though. We can choose. And a lot of people do choose to hate each other. A lot of people choose to create divisions upon divisions upon divisions upon divisions. So people choose to do that. And we cannot, no matter how much we want to, no matter how much someone else wants to, we cannot blame God for things like wars. We can't blame God for wars. Why would God let that happen? God doesn't let that happen. We let that happen. When we hear about 50 people being shot in a nightclub, God didn't let that happen. When we hear about school shootings, God didn't let that happen. When we hear about war, like the war that's raging still in the Ukraine, the war that's raging still in the Middle East, the new war that's starting now between Israel and Iran, and now the States are in, we cannot blame God for that because we have the freedom to make different choices. We have the freedom to make different choices. We can look at another person and say, in you, I see an enemy. Or we can look at another person and say, in you, I see a brother or a sister or a child or a grandchild, regardless of blood relation. And we can say, your well-being is of no concern to me, or we can say that your well-being has an impact on my well-being. We can look at unjust situations and say, that's over there. Whether over there is across the street or around the world. Or we can look at an unjust situation and say, until everybody enjoys justice, nobody enjoys justice. Until everybody has the essentials of life, and not only the essentials of life, but all that is required for life abundant, our job is not done. Until we can say with certainty that Silas will grow up in a world that will ensure that he is fed and housed and clothed and has the freedom to do all of the things that he has the potential and capability of doing, until we can say that, we have not lived up to what Paul wrote to the Galatians or to the Corinthians or to what Jesus said on his journey to the cross. We have been set free. Free from the slavery that says that we have to accomplish. That we have to, so we have to make that $1 million no matter what it takes. When I was growing up, in high school, Jim, thank you. When I was in high school, someone asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I said rich. I didn't care how I was going to get there. I said rich. My brother Carl was he was a little bit more practical at that time. Not so much anymore, but anyway, that's another story. My brother Carl, he took auto shop and auto mechanics and all of those pieces, right? And he said to me one day, he said, "Billy, you really should be doing this." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, because that way when your car breaks down, you'll be able to fix it." I said, "When my car breaks down, I'm going to get you to fix it." So I'd pay him, right? But at that time, in my head, I was destined for rich. That's what I wanted. Honestly, I didn't care how I was getting there. And that continued. Sorry, I should tell you this. That continued until when I was doing my undergraduate degree. I was fast-tracked. I did my undergrad. I was going on to Concordia to do a master's. While I was at Concordia, I'd been there for 1.5 years, and I had already been accepted to the U of T for a PhD. And I was bound and determined that that's where I was going. I was going to get that PhD. I was going to teach in the academy. I was going to write books. I was going to get famous and rich. That's where I was. And then I know most of you know this part of the story, but then I was reading the Montreal Gazette, And in the Montreal Gazette help wanted ads, there was this little ad that said, "Small church in the Eastern Townships seeks coordinator of ministry." Now, what does that mean? I had no idea. But I thought, that sounds interesting. So I called them up, and we had a conversation. I applied. The selling point for the job, and it was a United Church, right? So small United Church, Eastern Township. The selling point of the job was that it was an hour from Montreal, and it came with a house. So I had somewhere to live while I was finishing off my thesis, and then I was gone. But something happened in the first 3 months of my time in that small church. And here's what happened. 6 funerals happened in 5 weeks. And I had no idea what I had never written a sermon. When I was interviewed, I actually told them, I don't even know if I'm Christian. But in that first summer, something changed. And I realized that there was something more than getting rich. There was something more than making sure that my immediate personal needs were taken care of. I actually learned through that baptism by fire, really, that there was value in serving other people, in caring for our neighbors, and doing so in the most difficult times of their lives and at the most blessed times of their lives. And my trajectory changed. I mean, trust me, when you go into ministry, you're not going in because you want to be rich and famous, right? So it changed. And it changed because I heard, and I would say in some ways I heard for the first time the gospel. I heard for the first time the gospel. And I was 34, 35 years old. I then went off and did my MDiv, and here I am. But that's the power of the gospel. When it's spoken to us in a way that we can hear it. And so here's the thing. I know that every day we go out into a world where people are concerned with themselves, with their well-being, and for some of them, they want to get rich. Here's what I'm going to tell you. They haven't heard the gospel. A lot of them think they have. And a lot of them use the gospel to continue to create those barriers and those walls between us over and over and over again. A lot of people use the gospel to proclaim vitriol. And some of us in this small sanctuary have experienced that in a very real way. They haven't heard the gospel. Now, you sharing the gospel with them may not change their heart, may not have any effect on them today. I had people share the gospel with me when I was 14 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old. When I was in the Navy, I sailed and I met a padre who continued to plant and to nurture those seeds. The beauty of our faith is that it is true. And the truth will always win out. And if we believe that that the truth is not winning out, it's because it's not the end. It's because those seeds all of those seeds have not been watered and nurtured to the point where the truth wins. And Silas, that was very loud. So we just need to keep doing what we're doing, remember that the seeds have already been planted. The seeds have already been planted. God has planted the seeds. We are not the ones who plant the seeds. We are the ones who nurture. We are the ones who tend to the garden that others say we might as well just give up on. Because we don't know what 14-year-old kid is going to hear the truth at the age of 34 and his life, her life is going to be changed. We don't know at what point that wall gets broken down. We don't know what point the truth finally breaks through. We don't know. So our job, because of our faith, is to just keep plugging away. Just keep sharing the truth. Just keep sharing the love. Jesus laid it out for us, right? When someone hates you, love them. When someone forces you to do something, do more. When someone takes something, it's there. We proclaim that gospel every week. Every week. Our job when we leave this sanctuary is to make those words not simply black ink on white paper, but to make it the very core of our being. To make the gospel known, hopefully, usually without even having to use words. Just be Jesus in the world. That's what Paul is telling the people in Galatia. It's what he told the people in Corinth. And it's what Jesus told the people who were listening to him too. Love each other as I have loved you. Love each other as I have loved you. And so today, I'm going to tell you, I love all of you. I love you. You are core to my being. I love you because I am free to love you. But here's the kicker. You too are free. So go out and love each other. Love each other. Because in that way, we will create a better, more vibrant, more joyful, more loving world. Thanks be to God.